Namaste. My name is Shira Vasi. I'm from ShaktiPremanand.com, and we were going to do this on Facebook Live, but for some reason the connection there hasn't happened, so we're doing it on Instagram Live. And the topic is going to be about life as we unravel from lockdown, and how do we manage this arriving back. So for those of you that don't actually know who I am, hello, namaste. My name is Shira, and I have been on the journey for a very long time. And prior to that, I was the awakening journey, or the journey to truth, even for 14 years. And prior to that, I was a chartered accountant, and with an MBA, I was managing companies. So the topic of how do we get back into our lives after post-lockdown. As John Lennon said, life is what happens to you when you're busy making plans. And so for a lot of us, we were stamped on in terms of our freedom all of a sudden, without any knowing, unless you're part of the NHS, unless you're part of the emergency services, the police force, or the government. Then most of us are now not really working, or if we are, we're in furlough at home. And even when we are at home, we're not even with our families and loved ones. Namaste to all of you who've joined us. I can't individually acknowledge you, but I thank you for joining us today. And as I said, the topic is about how do we overcome from lockdown and back into our ordinary lives, in terms of what is ordinary any longer. Namaste. And so what is this phenomena of the economic system that we're going to be returning back to? Because those of us that are self-employed, those of us that are working in jobs, or those that are starting businesses, life is no longer going to be the same for us. And nobody actually knows how life will be, except that social distancing will be in place, and the whole PPP, equipment which we have to wear, will be in place, and no one actually knows for how long, because there's no vaccine either. So food shortages are definitely going to be there. The supply chain is going to be prevalent. So restaurants and bars and all of those services that we tend to go to in our ordinary lives, it's no longer going to be the same. We're not going to have our parties, we're not going to have gatherings for more than 10 people, most likely. So the whole of life as we've known it is going to change. And so what has this whole lockdown taught us in terms of how do we now, when we eventually do come out, acknowledge our lives in whatever shape or form we want to? So I would like to say that our concept of wealth and our concept of success is now longer questioned. It's no longer going to be about accumulation and me, this sort of selfish gene that's a very animal, just my family, just me as an individual. I mean, those type of people, which sadly are the majority in the survival instinct of life, will have their whole situation questioned, their well-being questioned, their index of happiness and joy will be questioned, because no longer is it enough. Every animal even thinks of its own family, but it takes a human to think and be compassionate and be caring and be kind, and to show genuine authenticity towards other human beings in this way of unconditional sense. This unconditional sense does not mean that you are a doormat to others, because we cannot serve others if we are not serving ourselves. So first and foremost, we must serve who we are and what we represent, and we must be in touch with our own self-mastery. And that self-mastery requires the techniques of yoga much more than ever, meditation much more than ever, to find that inner sense of connectivity, like who am I, and what is my purpose here, and what is it that my unique gift that I bring here right now that I can serve humanity with, not just serving myself and my individual needs and those that are around me, but serving the larger construct of humanity. This is what mankind is really being asked to look into. Like, what is it that you have that you can uniquely offer and that's uniquely yours, and that you're willing to share with others, and that you're willing to put yourself on the line and saying, I came here and I stood for. And that often requires, for those who haven't ever dwelt internally and navel-gazed, as the saying goes, to go within and, hold your hand. This is where the Force of Love Academy, which I've created with ShaktiPremanan.com, we do that, and we work with individuals to gain self-mastery of themselves, to find out what is their life purpose, to find out what is their Achilles heel, where is it that they get stuck, and where is it that they are actually shining, so that they can be the best version of themselves, and then society is able to be better served because they're in touch with their better selves, if that makes sense. Yeah? Let me tell you a story. Most of us have heard of Buddha, right? Well, Buddha had everything in his kingdom. He had money, he had a wife, he had children, and yet he was dissatisfied. And why was he dissatisfied? Because he saw suffering beyond his four walls. And that's what the lockdown has fundamentally questioned us to look at. Like, are we actually just content in our four walls with celebrities and a status, with looking at what the royalty is up to, looking at what politicians are up to, looking at what is going on outside of ourselves? Everything has been pointing outside, and you're just a mechanism as part of this wheel. No longer is that construct serving us. No longer is it enough to give our power away to someone else. And that power to be claimed back requires a self-mastery, requires a recognition, like, what is the fundamental reason why we are here on planet Earth? What is the mark that we want to make here on planet Earth? What will it say when we die? What will it say that you stood up for? So with all of this in mind, the Buddha was not joyful in his success. And as he was leaving his palace, a figure came to him and tried to stop him. And he said, "Where are you going, Master? You have everything here that most people desire. You have a palace, you have a kingdom, you are successful, you have a wife, you have children, you have everything. So where are you going?" And he said, "I'm going to find my true self, because here with all of these four walls, I am not content. And so I'm going to find who it is that I'm here to be. I'm going to the jungle." And this old man looked at him and saying, "You will find nothing in the jungle, Master. I was there." And then he said, "That was you, because you did not have what I had. You didn't have the trappings of the success and the money and the children and the wife. You were in the jungle and you were looking for this, but I had this and I am looking for the truth. You found the truth and you came and you shared that with me. That to me was more valuable. And now I want to find that truth for myself. And what is the real meaning of life? What is it that I'm here to do?" And this was the Buddha. And so his own master was asking him to question why he was leaving. Anyway, as we all know, the Buddha did leave and he did go and find the truth. And now we have Buddhism, which is about spread all throughout the world, about finding yourself. I'm not advocating Buddhism. I'm just giving that as an example of like how success in the material sense does not offer one everything. It doesn't genuinely serve all of our needs. So this lockdown has enabled us to really question, like, who am I? What am I here for? Like, what is the real meaning of life? And then hopefully as we return to our life, or some shape of our life, whether that's we've got to create a new business, whether we've been laid off our jobs, or whether we've got to cook our own food now and make our own food, whatever it is that we're being asked to do, we'll be coming from a much wider position. We will be encompassing a wider parameter of service, of compassion, of kindness, and of love. Fundamentally of loving oneself, because when in serving another human being, we're seeing ourselves. We're not We're not saying there is only I, we're saying there is we, and that we must come from this higher position of the I. So this is what the Force of Love Academy is serving to do, to bring people to their inner connectivity, and from that inner connectivity to allow themselves to be of service to a wider audience, which is really truly serving themselves. So a lot of people have joined, so thank you very much. And it's impulsive here on Instagram because I was going to do it on my YouTube, but for some reason I couldn't get connected. I'm back in the UK, as you probably gathered. And one thing I just want to add actually is from my own personal experience of the lockdown, being able to compare from from India to the UK, is how much more freedom there is in England. You really have a lot more freedom than in India. India is like a prison sentence. And one of the things I noticed that in the face of adversity is how people genuinely come together. People start to work together. There's more kindness. So in India, many people were coming together and helping one another, because there is no such thing as a social welfare state in India, where there is in England, and we're very, very blessed to have people in the government help us out here in England. So, but the contrast is quite significant to notice how locked on was in India and how locked on is here in the UK, and I'm totally grateful to be back in England. But I also noticed how heartfelt the Indians were, how in the face of adversity they all rally together and support one another. And that was tremendous to watch and observe over there. So then that service is government-led here in the UK more than it is individuals-led. You know, people don't actually say, can I be helpful to you? Whereas in India, they do. They knock on your door and they say, can I help you? So there's some lessons there of, in the face of adversity, how we can join forces and come together and be kind and be compassionate and be loving and find our inner purpose. And as we come out of our own lockdown, let's come out in a wider sense, not just from I, but from a we, and from a point of service. And let's not be animals. Let's not just be animal instinct, you know, sex, money, and power, and just about my family and just about me. Let's have a wider family, a bigger family that's bigger than us, and that requires stepping beyond ourselves and to a we mentality of life. And if you really want to know what it is that you're here for, what is your dharma, join us, contact us, drop me an email, come and work with me, and shaktipremanan.com, or email me or message me, and let's get connected to our inner source. Let's get connected to the divine source, to the I, and then to service. Thank you so much for all of you who've joined us. Namaste.